So today was our first full day in Guatemala, and a it was a heavy day. I think heavy is the word that I would use to describe it. So in the morning, we met with a Catholic priest that is working with migrants in Guatemala, people who are leaving the country, and also people who are being deported back to the country. He gave us a lot of really helpful things to think about in terms of how we talk about the migrant crisis with our home congregations. He gave us a lot of great scriptural references to look at and to talk about. The highlight of the day for me was we got to hear a lecture about the history of Guatemala, and that really helped me put all of the stories I'm hearing into a better context. So particularly learning about Guatemala's history of colonization and how the problem of migration didn't just happen 3 or 4 years ago. It is something that has been a long time coming, over several hundred years. It was also really helpful to hear why people are migrating from Guatemala. So unlike El Salvador and Honduras, where gang violence is a kind of number one reason that people are migrating, in Guatemala, it's mostly for economic reasons. So people either can't get jobs or they can't get jobs that pay enough money. So it was helpful to compare and contrast that. After that, we got to hear some stories of folks who have been deported to Guatemala and who are helping other people who have been deported assimilate to life here. And their stories were really powerful. I'm still kind of processing how I'm gonna share them with people back home. But I was really in awe of the fact that they have taken their trauma over what has happened, have done some healing, and are now using their trauma to help other people who are being traumatized. So for me, that was really the hopeful message of the day, that, in the midst of all of this chaos and uncertainty and oppression, there is still hope. There is hope for the future of this country. There's hope for people who are currently facing deportation. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to hold on to. As we were leaving the place that we were staying, I took a picture of a cross kind of set against the background of barbed wire. And more than anything else, that picture really encapsulates the trip for me so far of, there is resurrection hope, even in the midst of really, really difficult situations. So that's what I have for today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Today was an interesting look at the history of Guatemala, and especially looking at the dynamic between the indigenous population and the Spanish population. That is a rift that goes back hundreds of years, and that's actually something I knew about Guatemala coming into it. I didn't realize that it was unique to Guatemala in a way that it is not present in El Salvador or Honduras. There is still a higher indigenous population in Guatemala than in those other Central American countries. My time here before was spent with the indigenous population in the Quiche region of Guatemala, and we learned today that the majority of the migrants from Guatemala are from the indigenous population, and that poverty and racism are huge factors in their decisions to migrate. So that was really fascinating, and that migration has actually really heated up and gone into high gear since that last time I was here. So that's been an interesting update. The thing that I, like Rebecca, have been looking to today, and it was interesting that a text message conversation with a church member and friend came up today. You know who you are. Hey girl, hey. We were talking about hope, and where's the hope in something like this? How do you come home from a trip like this not hopeless? And I know for me, seeing the depths of woe in humanity is how I find the depths of the hope of salvation. It's very easy for me in my wealthy white privilege to say my sins aren't that bad. But being forced to face the systems that I am a complicit part of that are doing great damage to other people remind me that we are all terrible sinners. This is a very, very Calvinist reformed. I'm like super Presbyterian right now. Depravity! But it reminds me of the depravity, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that is where we find our hope and salvation and realize the greatness of what Jesus has done for us. Nobody knows sorrow like Jesus knows sorrow. One of our speakers today, the priest we met with first thing this morning, said that Jesus is still dying along with the poor and the migrant and the suffering who are dying. And that's not meant to be a dark thing, but rather if we are looking to find Jesus in the world, of course that's where we're going to find Jesus, is in walking with those, being with those who are suffering, just as Jesus is alongside of us in our suffering. So I think that for me, that is a hopeful thing. And we were in this room at a museum we were at that talked about the history of Guatemala, including the atrocities that have happened here, especially to the indigenous people. And there is this room where you walk in and there's a big light up above that has cutouts in it, so when the light shines there's shadows on the wall that say things in Spanish, but they say things like murder and genocide and racism and femicide, and it says something along the lines of you can be a change if you only make the effort, if you only participate in the change. And you can put your hand on this switch that then flips off that first light and turns on this light that projects on the wall people holding hands in a big circle with butterflies and words like hope, esperanza. And that was just such an incredibly gorgeous illustration of you find the hope in knowing that we are equipped to help be the hope by walking alongside one another. And just the use of light and shadow too is like so theologically rich that was really cool too. So it was a good day. It was a long day. It was a hard day. My brain is about to turn to complete goop, but it was a good day. And I too, like Rebecca, look forward to finding ways to bring these stories home to people, to share these stories. And some of them I've caught on video, so expect those when this full video comes out from this trip. I know I still owe you guys Uganda and Ireland, but we'll get there. This one might have to come first. We might have to go out of chronological order. So yeah, tomorrow I think is going to be a lighter day, more of a sightseeing, getting to know the city day, and that's good. We all need it. I don't think we can process a whole lot more information without some space. All of the sins that happened are on the wall. What is racism, discrimination, femicide. But he says, I suppose this is only you can make change.